You are not smarter or more intelligent. You just speak English. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special episode of Behind the English presented by yours truly, Koja, aka Mr. Behind the English, Mr. Musokeli Chamazi Charles. I am the writer and author of the masterpiece that is Behind the English, When English and an African Marry. Grab yourself a copy today on Amazon worldwide. We have a very special one for you today. Call it The Case of the Two Mathiases. One is a legendary singer, songwriter, musician, former music, dance, and drama teacher, playwright, actor, performer, and currently a leader, the mayor of Chengra Town Council in Wakiso District. A decent, if not actual great mayor, by the way, even though with not so much prior mayoral experience. We can sure improve if need be. Just say the word, and receipts will be promptly provided. Mathias number 2, on the other hand, is a former secondary school teacher, non-practicing lawyer, more like debatable law-breaking lawyer, duplicitous, reprobate, and unscrupulous former leader of the opposition in the Uganda version of the parliament. It is currently election season, political season in Uganda, and the madness, craziness, insanity, and ridiculousness that is English as relates to Uganda one just cannot run away from. I had a good number of reasons why I sat down and wrote about the relationship between the English language and Ugandan or African identity. Only second to the fact that English is just too expensive a commodity to Ugandans was the fact that some, if not most, of so-called learned or educated Ugandans think that their ability to speak the foreign language English, sometimes even better than their own native languages, is a sign of genius, a sign of smartness, a sign of intelligence. One would think that English is these individuals' first language, their native language. Of course, not based on how well they speak or write it, but based on the high regards to which they hold it. Their whole bravado, swagger, and self-confidence literally hinges on English. Recently, the only political party worthy of the title in Uganda, that is the National Unity Platform, released a list of individuals who are going to be the party's flag bearers during next year's parliamentary elections. Among these was Mathias number 1, who unseated an incumbent who we'll call Mr. Tulo Degrees. Mr. Tulo Degrees is coincidentally Mathias number 2's best friend of more than 20 years. The two should have been identical twins, at least based on their logic and rationality. Just like Zionists accuse anyone who dares to point out anything wrong they do, did, or are currently doing of anti-Semitism. These two delusional individuals blame any and everything on jealousy and envy. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. According to Mathias number 2 and Tulo Degrees, the rest of the 49 million Ugandans are jealous and envious of how much English they speak, how much more educated they are. Forget their poor track records as legislators for 15 years each. Forget the various corruption scandals that their names came up in and continue to come up in. That's all neither here nor there, at least as far as these two are concerned. They just can't think of any other reasons except for the fact that the National Unity Platform party president, the party leadership, and even their own voters and constituents are jealous and envious of their English-speaking abilities. Let that sink in for a minute. Now let's take a quick trip behind this English that Mathias number 2 and Tulo Degrees can't brag enough about. If it was up to them, people should be getting on their knees and kissing their feet, all in the name of their superior English abilities. For all who want to know, Mathias number 2 and Tulo Degrees met in school many years ago and served together as some type of administrators in Mango. Before working for the Uganda Kingdom, these two had gone to school on some kind of Uganda Kingdom scholarship. That is where they learned those special English skills mentioned earlier. In other words, Baganda and Uganda tax-paying citizens in general pay for those supposedly many degrees and as well gave them their first jobs fresh out of university. What thanks did we get, you ask? No worries, we'll get to that part in a short while. Tulo Degrees has spent the last 2 to 3 weeks since he found out that he had lost flag bearership to Mathias #1 on a multimedia tour, telling anyone who will listen how he was the better candidate just because he speaks better English. How much I wish that was a joke. In addition to Mathias #1's impressive resume above, the man is a hoser. This title and honor was bestowed on him by the Kabaka himself and at a public and televised event. He was recognized for his distinguished service to the people of Uganda and Uganda through his mostly educational and musical works. For reasons best known to individuals like Mathias #2 and Tulo Degrees, some people want to be treated special and feared just because they worked in Mango before. Like this fact somehow automatically qualifies them as honorables, and not just your ordinary honorables, but the English-speaking elite. Is it me, or does it feel like these two gentlemen walk around literally disrespecting Buganda, Ugandans, and or even the Kabaka? What's even worse is that most of the disrespect happens mostly on what is supposed to be Uganda-owned and run media houses, namely CBS and BBS. No one can convince me that these two fools don't actually think it's they who put the Kabaka in that position, and so they can take it away from him whenever they feel like it. At least that's how Mathias #2 especially acts like and carries himself. The man was caught red-handed using his position as a parliamentary leader of the opposition to steal from Ugandans. In addition to the customary, it's all because the world is jealous and envious of his unmatched English skills. This man with a straight face claimed that the whole thing was because the National Unity Platform Party president was personally jealous of him. For that reason, he had gone ahead and used his position as the president to fight personal battles. His best friend Tulo Degrees, of course, came to his defense in typical not-so-honorable fashion. Instead of internally addressing issues through the proper party channels like the National Executive Committee that he is a member of, and as a senior and experienced member at that, this man literally went to those two media platforms already mentioned and unloaded on his own party. He just kept saying how disappointed he was by how shabbily matters were supposedly handled. How I wish he had made an effort to at least explain what exactly he meant by matters being shabbily handled. Needless to say, Mathias #2 and the National Unity Platform have since parted ways, and he went on to form a front of a political party that he calls the Democratic Front. Forgive Mr. 500, but I am going to tell Uganda and Ugandans what the real meaning of a front is. You and your best friend ain't the only ones who know what English words mean. Anyway, a front organization is any entity set up by and controlled by another organization that acts for the parent group without the actions being attributed to the parent group, thereby allowing them to hide certain activities from authorities or the public. Speaking of fronts, there's another one of those in the form of PFF or PPF, and sure enough, the Secretary General, for reasons best known to him, has a worrying obsession with the ongoings within the National Unity Platform as well. I'll go as far as saying that I've heard him talk negatively about the National Unity Platform more than he ever talks positively about a party where he supposedly is a host Secretary General. He's also one of those who think that they are geniuses just because they can read national budgets in English, or his favorite, going down the list of how much the State House and presidency spend every minute of the day. And I mean every minute of the day, if not second. These two fronters literally have the whole of Uganda confused. Supposedly, the National Unity Platform isn't but a group of political novices and ignorants who have not a clue what they're doing. They are supposedly also a project for the dictatorship, if we are to go by what Senkagali can't stop himself from saying. Only little issue we have with him is that it's hard to forget about the documentary A Brilliant Genocide on YouTube every time we see or hear from him. Anyway, Matthias number 2, aka Mr. 500 especially, supposedly just had to form what he calls his own political party. Initially, this two fronts version of recruiting and mobilization was to wait for a real political party in the form of the National Unity Platform to finish their candidate vetting and selection process so they can come and scramble for the leftovers, so to speak. In fact, they even went the extra mile in some cases and planted malls who they know would definitely be denied flag bearership. These types of individuals are then financially facilitated to go on National Unity Platform bashing media tours. For whatever reason, the above was the formula except in the case of two law degrees and another lady rumored to have been Mr. 500's friend with benefits, for lack of better words. Just two disgraceful, treasonous individuals just like himself. You can call our special friend above Joy Seer, or should we say Joy Giver. That's if you are Mr. 500, of course. Anyway, one would think that it would be a no-brainer to just hand these two friends in the front party cards, like we call them. Especially now that there are literally two whole supposedly political parties to pick from. They wouldn't have to risk being graded and judged by someone less educated and isn't that good of an English speaker. Two law degrees wouldn't have to disrespect and speak condescendingly about the National Unity Platform's elections committee. But then, that's asking too much of individuals who literally think their ability to cram and recite what others wrote and created gives them an edge, if not makes them geniuses. Speaking of geniuses, another friend and comrade of this delusional lot is another useful idiot by the name Tilapia Mouth. If you know, you know. Mr. Tilapia Mouth literally has spent a whole electoral term being a nuisance on Facebook and TikTok. Ironic how the same individual unsuccessfully presented a bill in the parliament that was coined the Computer Misuse Act. On everything allowed, this man spent Ugandan hard-earned tax shillings on an absence of leave to go draft a law pretty much taking away their freedom to speak. Supposedly, one was to ask for permission from crime committers if he or she can film them while in the act. I don't think you heard that right. Tilapia Mouth wanted witnesses to a robbery to have to ask permission from the robbers first before filming the crime. How in the hell that was about to work, I have not a clue. Back to why we're here though. Tilapia Mouth, of course, had a stupid remark or two to make about One Mathias' supposedly inferior English-speaking capabilities. Supposedly, part of being a member of the Uganda parliament could be one being required to speak at the UN. Yet according to him, Matthias number 1 just doesn't speak good enough English to address the UN Assembly. Just so we're on the same page, after UN, nations are nothing but united, and the UN is pretty much a joke. But you don't have to listen to me. I'm only Ugandan and just a regular Ugandan at that, which means I do not benefit a thing from the existence of the so-called United Nations organization. For that reason, I have nothing positive to say. Anyway, I guess we should call it a coincidence that just like Mr. 500, the Secretary General guy and Tilapia Mouth all supposedly have political parties but will not recruit the two National Unity Platform's rejects. Hell, they won't even recruit themselves, especially to run for the Uganda presidency. Instead, all they do is convince themselves that they're better than the National Unity Platform president and should be in the position that he's in. Supposedly, they are vastly experienced in the political game. Not to ruin the little hallucination episode, but the National Unity Platform president accomplished more in the parliament in 2 years than those pretenders have accomplished in 15 years. Speaking of experience, did you happen to catch the New York mayoral debate? What is it with politicians throwing around the experience card? Seems like we need to really consider term limits at all levels of government because the experience thing is getting out of hand. Not even all good endings necessarily justify the means. However, individuals like Cuomo with a checkered past, to put it lightly, for some reason want to be applauded and probably given an award and medal while at it. I swear Mamdan is not going out of his way to make Cuomo sound stupid, but he's scared how ridiculous the reasoning of an adult that old is worse than my 10-year-old nephew. I swear I'm not exaggerating, but my nephew at least stays on topic when answering questions even when it's not the right answer. Matthias number 2, aka Mr. 500, the Secretary General guy in tilapia mouth, one who think we're born in the parliament, the way they can't get themselves to not be condescending towards some Matthias and Ugandans like him. Just like Cuomo in New York, you guys have no right and are simply in no position to brag about an experience. New Yorkers can barely afford food these days and crime rates are high, and all this happened under his watch. I guess he had traveled to that foreign country that one would think he's actually running to be president in and not to be New York mayor. Just like Cuomo, there's not an accomplishment amongst the three of you all combined except engaging in corruption, sex scandals, theft, and betrayal. Now that's what the experience has been and continues to be as it relates to having you all in those positions that we are soon removing all of you from. Sam Mathias, on the other hand, has served one term as mayor and transformed the whole town council. So much so that he is using his accomplishments as mayor as reasons why he's sure his constituents should trust him to take the next step into becoming a legislator. On the reverse side, two law degrees can't even brag that he chaired one COSASA hearing of note in all the years he has chaired there. All he can come up with is that he speaks English. You know what? That's it for this episode of Behind the English. Again, please support by subscribing to the channel, liking and sharing, and of course purchasing a copy of the book on Amazon, Behind the English, When English and an African Marry. Over and out.